Ladies and gentlemen, hi, this is Janis Taukac from Sorainen, and today we're um, going to the hotspot of the world map, which is Ukraine. And I'm meeting my old-time friend from Ukrainian uh, law firm Kinstellar, Illya Sverdlov. Ilya is a partner at Kinstellar and head of tax department. Before that, he was a tax partner at DLA in Ukraine, in Kiev, for 16 years. And now it's about soon to be 1 year since he moved from DLA to Kinstellar. And I saw from Legal 500 that Kinstellar is tier one firm in tax. And I'm really happy to have a chat with you, Ilya. How are you?
Hi, Yanis. Thanks for having me on your wonderful podcast. I'm okay. As you just mentioned, we are a hotspot and we are in the enemy at the gate situation. Uh, for us, it has been 8 years with enemy at the gate. So I would say that currently Ukrainians feel more calm than it is seen from other media outlets all over the world. So, of course, we are ready and Ukraine is ready for any development. But still, I would say that the atmosphere here is more calm than it is seen around the world. So, uh, again, uh, we hope that everything will be okay, but Ukraine is always ready to fight, as always.
Wow, wow. It's normally we start our podcasts with some personal matters of our guest, but I to be honest, I cannot speak now about personal matters when today it is when we are recording, it's 12th of February, and the situation I see in the media is changing every hour, and news are coming in that people in Kiev are going into demonstrations today and against protesting against the potential war. How do you feel? Can you even think of work, of taxation, of business in such situation? I cannot imagine how can you survive this?
Uh, well, Yanis, again, I think that for us, I mean, here in Kiev, I mean, Kiev is quite a comfortable place, I would say, and it's a bit different for our soldiers which stand in the borders. And
Mm,
so, I mean, I can't complain. Of course, like being more serious, I would say that all the companies, including ours, we all have emergency plan, like plan A, plan B, what to do. And we actually had it back in 2014 when we were in DLA with other firm. So we are kind of prepared for all scenarios. And I would say sometimes that keeping the work, keeping doing the work is something which actually gives you more comfort amid all those news and panic and, a lot of um, it's so great that like yesterday when the news broke, I received three WhatsApp messages. One was from my Brazilian tax colleague, second was from yourself, and the third was from the US. They came just like in 10 minutes. Guys, what's going on? How we can help, etc., etc. So again, we are okay. We feel the support from everyone, and that is very valued here. So again, everybody is doing their best, and I can't complain about myself and my colleagues, for example. I mean, tough
mm,
cookies, tough cookies
yeah.
here. I mean,
Mm.
that's
And what's the overall feeling in the business area? Can you say that it's sort of uh, business as usual, so to say, or maybe there is also a downturn in the everybody is like waiting what will happen in the politics.
Well, I would say that again, strangely enough, we don't feel like downturn, like even in January, which is quite a traditional month where like people come from holidays, you know, in Ukraine and in our region. I would say, I mean, business starts on 15th of January actually because everybody is on vacation, but we had a very good January. We have deals going on. I would say that the dear child of Ukraine IT sector and tech sector is like booming. People and companies come to the market. They're considering like, are they establishing an R&D unit or purchasing some well, IT and tech businesses overall. So again, frankly speaking, we don't feel it like in terms of downturn. Even though we are being constantly asked this question for now. But I mean, we'll see how it will develop in February, in March. But again, there is a good Ukrainian saying, I don't know how translate it. We were kind of, I mean, it means that for 7 years we were in a very bad situation and finally we got used to it. So I mean that's where we are, and that's why I mean people just everybody does what they have to, and this is it. That's I would say like psychologically what you can do in the situation where a neighboring country which pretends to be your brother, as they call themselves, strangely enough, it's like an oxymoron. But I mean, that's where we are. So, I mean, I hope that I tried to explain how we feel.
Yeah, it's I cannot pretend that I do understand your feelings and the internal business environment right now, but of course it's it seems very disturbing, all the news that are coming in. How do you see the from you? I hear some calmness in the situation, and when I spoke to my brother, he's as you know, he's working in Odessa in Ukrainian city, and he also said that no, there's no panic. They have plan B in case shit happens, but they are not leaving the country, and everything is working as sort of usual. Do you yourself would you yourself change your business suit and go and fight for your country if needed?
Well, the thing is that there is a law on like territorial defense, which was passed quite some time ago, and everyone like whom I know, they already visited this like military departments in every district to kind of to check themselves in. Even those who kind of have um, some issues. I mean, who doesn't have like military rank and who didn't pass the military service when special military service in the university, as you know, which happens like 1 or 2 year, and so and they check themselves in, and there is territorial defense units and territorial defense, and people already. I mean, you know, it's it happens so calmly because like my friends, I know my colleagues, female colleagues, they also check themselves in just to make sure they know they call there, they visit this military stations, they say that we are ready, etc. They know what to do, and what is also important, people started doing shooting exercises in the vicinity of Kiev or in Kiev, just to kind of maybe to remove stress and maybe just to get ready. But again, this is already done, like, again, in a no panic mode. I would say that's what is important. And yeah, what people say, I mean, if even something happens, cities in Ukraine, I mean, Ukrainians have been always famous by the guerrilla fights, in all the wars. It's kind of in blood and in DNA, and that's what keeps people, I would say, kind of, again, in a no panic mode.
Okay, so from that I understand you have no plans to go away from taxation in the nearest future.
No.
Okay. But business climate in general, you said the business was quite good in January, so you don't see the investments stopped or even exiting?
No. Again, strangely enough, the only like thing we kind of witnessed that under one of the deals, the syndicate of lenders, I mean, it consisted of a few of the lenders, and just one of the lenders would just step away because of the situation, like weighing the political risk. But again, there was a process to kind of just substitute it for another one in place. That's the only kind of negative thing which I witnessed in terms of like effect on the deal. But again, other than that, strangely enough, Americans are still investing in IT and in tech, like absolutely in a calm mode, because the hysteria which is now on American, or in American media, I mean, it's really, really huge. And again, the news coming in, and I would expect that, okay, that Americans would not do anything, would stop their investments, or would put it on hold. But we don't see it, actually. We don't see it. Maybe, I mean, again, I mean, to have a like maybe more representative view, it would be good to ask maybe other law firms and colleagues on the market, just to have the general feeling. Possibly there are cases where people like what put on hold. So far, we don't feel it, and I hope it will continue is like still business as usual, or almost as usual mode for us.
Yeah. Some days ago, I published on social media the information about the nice taxation regime you are having now from 1st of January regarding taxation of IT companies, and the only comments I've got in return, and we can speak about that regime a little bit later, but the only comments I got in return are have you considered political risks or some other risks coming out of this just before publishing? Do you see that, I don't know, these corruption scandals or some other bad things that are public about Ukraine getting less in the last years? For example, I've read the book Moneyland by Oliver Bullock, which is a UK journalist, and there was a lot about Ukrainian corruption. Do you see that this has got maybe better in the last years?
Well, Yanis, I wouldn't like. I don't want to draw a very nice picture. Ukraine has gone through quite a process since we gained our independence, in 1991, and I would say that with each year it's getting better in terms of institutions, processes, people, and kind of like anti-corruption mechanism put in place, and corruption being removed, etc. It's getting better. It's not ideal. Again, I would want it to happen, as again much faster, and we all want it. And it doesn't follow our wishes always. I mean, in terms of timing, but things get better. Scandals happen, but corruption scandals happen in each and every country. Sometimes I think that it's exaggerated in many cases, but there is something to work on yet, and still. But again, the huge leap has been made, like even for last 8 years, starting from 2014, because it was like National Anti-Corruption Bureau being established, like changes in prosecutors office, and creation of special anti-corruption court, which is like functioning as a separate arm. So and we see a lot of cases coming in, like despite all the situation, we see the cases like with deputies, etc. It's a good sign, and I hope there will be no rollback. But it will take time, and the reasons for that are different. Like unlike Latvia, for example, Ukraine didn't have like statehood period in between two wars, right? And you need to kind of to develop this culture, to develop statehood mentality for people which work for state. You need to kind of incentivize them properly, and it will not come overnight. Again, I hope our kids will live in a much better state, and we are already living in a much better state. And again, I always say, if you compare our parents, for example, back in 80s, how they lived in the country that was called the Soviet Union, and now, I mean, it's a totally different story. I mean, they live much better, and in a more democratic state. I mean, the degree of democracy and institutions and their quality differs, but still, I mean, there is a progress, if in short.
Okay, and from corruption to the still about the general business environment, the gray economy, has the scale of it also decreased lately, or have you seen some progress in that regard?
Yes, definitely, and there has been like a lot of measures taken towards certain areas of the market where I would say like it was very common to have cash settlements, like black cash, which is called, and now the situation regarding like fiscal registers and all the stuff. I mean, it has really improved, and now tax office also monitors the situation, and in terms of analysis and in terms of like loopholes, things got much better. And like we also discussed some years ago, like the VAT system, electronic VAT system, how it functions. I mean, it's so easy for tax office to check and find the inconsistencies in the transactions, which really improved VAT collection and for billions. Like there are still issues. There are still issues like VAT fraud is something which is present in the EU and elsewhere. But again, in terms of electronic system which was implemented, it's very good. And now we see another like quite fiscal approach from the leading like political force through parliament and through their legislative initiatives. It is meant to kind of toughen situation in certain sectors of economy, which creates a backlash from certain industries, which are very interested. But overall, I would say again that great progress has been done in this regard, and but still a lot to work on as usual.
Today I spoke to my brother, and he said that they went shopping with his wife in Odessa, and they bought something for $160 and asked for a receipt, and shopkeeper pretended she does not understand what he wants, and so you can have electronic system, but if it's not registered, then probably it's difficult to monitor this. But
yeah, and it still happens, and I would assume the sale must have been done by some private entrepreneur. These things happen, but again, there is an easy way to do. You just can call and maybe notify somebody, and generally, each sale must be supported by the document, and they should have insisted on it. Otherwise, that happens sometimes. But now I think that people all got like electronic or fiscal registers, or cash registers in place, and POS terminals, etc. So I would say again, this happens, but things
getting better.
Yeah, things getting better, and again, just people should know their rights, and also.
Okay. Have you seen any juicy tax-related story you would like to share?
Juicy tax-related story in which respect? Overall?
Overall in Ukraine, I mean.
Well, I would say, I don't know, the thing which I wanted to share with you is that starting from this year, we have a lot of changes, like CFC rules. They like it 2022 will be the first reporting year, and people must report their CFCs and income in 2023 for 2022. We also have place of effective management concept introduced in our tax code, and now based on certain criteria, tax authorities might recognize the fiscal residency of foreign companies in Ukraine. And for Ukrainian businesses which have holdings elsewhere in the world, this is really a hot topic, and people want to kind of reconsider, restructure everything in terms of management, where the decisions are taken. And what we actually see is that starting from 2021, Ukrainian tax authorities have been very active in sending tax information requests for holdings where Ukrainians are beneficial owners. Cyprus, Malta, Netherlands, with very, very detailed questionnaires, like 15, 20 questions asking in many details how decisions are taken, which premises are used, lease agreements, powers of attorney, and we expect that place of effective management will be a hammer which tax authorities will use in a year or two, specifically after we see the first round of CFC reporting, which will give them a lot of information about the companies controlled by Ukrainian beneficiaries. And that is something like juicy, which might take place. So, and I mean, it will be interesting year, specifically like this one and this and the next one, as we will see how they kind of look and how, I mean, how they will use the information they obtain. And they already started doing it. People are preparing themselves and preparing defense files. And again, you know, some big Ukrainian groups, they receive requests like each month or two through foreign authorities. And this is, again, I would say that, you know, like comparing it with geopolitics, this is the start of the great game. We'll see how it develops, you know.
And what's your prediction? How will it develop? Will the Ukrainians change their international structures now?
Definitely, and that's something which we and all the advisors, I would say, for international tax advisors, kind of insisted on for last 2 or 3 years. But some Ukrainians are not very easy to accept the inevitability of that fact, and they started thinking of it only when it becomes effective, you know. Maybe we will wait, something will happen, and maybe we will still invent something about it. But no, I think that now the rules are really different. And people, I mean, frankly speaking, the idea is very simple. You just simplify the structure, remove the elements which are not needed and which only create reporting and tax issues, and create permanent establishment risks or place of effective management risks, like put people where the value is created, or I don't know, remove the income where the value is created, be compliant from transfer pricing perspective. And again, my recipe is always, you need to be able to explain the group structure to your kid, and if you can do it, then it generally should work. Because if it's complicated and you can't explain the elements of it, that's why things get complicated. And tax authorities are more and more sophisticated and educated. Specifically, our large business office, large taxpayers office is, I mean, for last year, I would say I was really surprised how they review the cross-border arrangements, for example, which questions they ask. I mean, it's first time like you see that you have a kind of an opponent which is really prepared, really asking like some good question, pointing the things which before were not pointed. So that is, I think, where we are. And I think, I mean, I'm happy because I think that it will bring more work to tax advisors, and their work will be more appreciated by Ukrainian clients.
They will simply start to listen to tax advisors.
Yeah, but
more.
Yeah, I know they always want good news, but I kind of changed my way of thinking about being tax advisor from where I started over the years. Because I mean, I would say good tax advisor needs to kind of convincingly communicate like sad truths or bad things which needs to be accepted. Of course, we are expected to be very creative, but it doesn't mean that creativity results in no taxes. It doesn't work. I mean, that's 20 years back mentality.
Mm-hmm. So basically, the authorities are attacking these holding companies that they don't have any functions, and then for tax treaty purposes, they simply disregard those companies. Yeah.
Yeah, I say that's again the grand scheme and the grand strategy, and also I would say for holding companies it's not even so interesting, because what they could attack is like dividends and capital gains if there are any. But for operational companies, which are also plenty of them, like for example, IT business might have company, I don't know, in Cyprus, right, which is a sale vehicle. They might say software as a service or some video content, and people are sitting, for example, here in Ukraine, and then the question is where the decisions are taken, how
Mm,
you structure your sales, from where sales are initiated, etc., etc. And these are tough questions. These
mm,
are tough
mm,
questions, and you just cannot say that there is a guy in Cyprus signing everything. So you either put people in Cyprus or remove them and kind of create real functions over there, or you just get rid of this company and structure sales from Ukraine, for example. I mean, that might also be an answer to the
mm,
questions. So
mm. Yeah. We also saw that in Europe there are more and more uh, cases where the courts are disregarding company for this and that, and even now it comes later in the Baltic states than in the Western Europe. But now I can see that also there was a case in Lithuania that the Lithuanian company had a parent company in Estonia, and Estonian company had Lithuanian shareholders, and the Lithuanian court said that dividends passed on to the Estonian company
mhm.
were not distributed to the Lithuanian shareholders on, but still they disregarded this Estonian company and said that it has been it should be taxed as if the Lithuanian shareholders have received those dividends. So
Mhm.
they completely disregarded the Estonian middle company. So it's and there is a new shell entity directive coming in Europe from 2023. So it's really uh, not happening not only in Ukraine more and more, but also throughout the whole Europe.
Yeah, that's true. I saw that that new directive. I mean, it's alarming, but the reading was on the wall for a few years. I mean, it would happen,
Mm,
and again, it's getting tough, and and already DAC 6 creates a lot of problem, right? Doesn't it, Yanis? For us in Ukraine, we don't have to report under DAC 6 unless there are two EU elements on top of Ukrainian structure, and we just need intra-EU DAC 6 reporting. But frankly speaking, I know that there are a lot of IT systems which put DAC 6 reporting into kind of into easier mode for the companies. But how do you deal with it? What's your experience with DAC 6 recently? I mean, just to understand from our perspective, if we have like
mm.
some Estonian and Cyprus and maybe Estonian Lithuanian company, and we make use of some benefits.
Well, in the Baltics, we see that the law firms are not obliged to report at all. So they are obliged to inform their clients that sometimes that they need to report, but currently the most of work we have seen is just uh, due diligence of the bigger companies, of their procedures, and just informing them of the of the hallmarks of the risks when this reporting might happen. So really not a lot of work, I would say, so far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's different depending on the jurisdiction, because I mean it's still you need to implement and localize it, and then it differs jurisdiction per jurisdiction. So there is a general framework, and there may be deviations. Let's put it this way, right? Okay.
Sure. At some point, Ukraine wanted to implement this Estonian system of corporate income tax that the tax is not payable until distribution of profits. So is this idea dead now in Ukraine?
Well, Yanis, I think we discussed it again quite a few years ago, and it has been in discussion for 5 years or something, the exit capital taxation to be implemented like on a all Ukrainian basis, and there was a big lobby, I would say, in the market for this system to be introduced. But ultimately, I think that the figures which were shown by Ministry of Finance and effect of this law on the budget and revenues, I think it all led to a situation where it was not adopted. So again, there are different views on that and different calculations. I cannot say which one is correct. Maybe I'm not an economist. But for 2 or 3 years after the adoption, there would be kind of a decrease in revenues, definitely. I mean, it will kind of maybe get back later, but in the initial stage. And I think, like, realistically, it was decided that it shouldn't be adopted, and it's not on the agenda already. But the good thing is that, you know, the new IT regime, which we discussed also, this DSCT regime, which is a regime for IT industry introduced and applied on the whole territory of Ukraine without any territorial kind of link. You can do and apply it everywhere. So it gives benefits from corporate perspective, from corporate income tax perspective, and also, most importantly, from personal income tax perspective, because it kind of creates really, really competitive payroll taxation, I would say, for IT specialists. But from corporate income tax perspective, the companies which are registered in DSCT, they can use either ordinary tax regime, so paying 18% on their profit, or they can have a regime which is basically an exit capital tax. So you do not pay tax unless you distribute the profit, or unless you do the transaction which is treated as distribution of profits, like purchase of something at an overvalue, or selling something at an undervalue, or doing any other transaction which is equal as profit distribution. And the income tax rate for this exit capital tax would be 9%, which is very good. And that is, I would say, it's a kind of implementation of the Estonian regime for IT business only. And I think there has been long discussions. There are nitty-gritty details about how it works. But overall, I would say it's good. And it's already welcomed very positively by US businesses, Israeli businesses, all those who are very active in IT sector in Ukraine, who have R&D units or who have product companies, etc., etc. And there is already the first registration which took place in the DSCT. I think it was a presentation. It was a Revolut, if I'm not mistaken. And there is a few clients in our pipeline which are in the process of preparing document for registration and going into this regime. So, but one important thing also, in addition to corporate income tax, is taxation of salaries or remuneration, it is 6.5%, which is it's 5% of personal income tax and 1.5% of military duty, and that is very, very competitive, and it actually is something which is comparable to single tax system of private entrepreneurs, which is used in Ukraine, where they pay 5% on their revenues. There are limitations, not limitations, I would say. I mean, there is level of salaries which are to be kind of applied for IT specialists which work in DSCT regime, and they're it's actually market level of remunerations. So
1.2 thousand, yeah.
Yeah, and therefore, I mean, everybody will use it, and there are two options how you can attract people. Actually, you can employ them and pay 6.5%, or you may use them as gig contractors under so-called gig contract, which is a mix of a service agreement and employment agreement, and you kid on the block, like I would say, from legal perspective. But again, 6.5% and very attractive corporate income taxation. I think that will be a huge thing, and we all hope for it. And it was granted for 25 years. So again, I think that it's the most competitive IT regime in the region now. I mean, even if we compare to high technologies park in Belarus, right? How it's called, and others. The only thing is, again, political risks, which a lot of companies accept and keep doing business in IT.
Right. And this is a huge topic. This is a really huge topic, because I understand that so far this very nice tax regime for IT specialists was on the individual or individual interpreter individual entrepreneur level, but now it's extended to companies. And when like I said, I did already, I took the information from my BFD and did some comparison, that if the Latvian IT business would move their IT specialists from Latvia to Ukraine now to this new regime, then the company from just 2,000 euros turnover would increase the profit by 50%, 50. So it's a huge benefit now to outsource the Ukrainian IT guys or even establish a business there. But I already heard two mistakes I've made, so that I thought it's 5% on salaries. You said it's 6.5, but it's not a big difference. And then the second mistake I did, it was like I applied this the regular 18% corporate income tax rate plus 5% on distribution of dividends, the withholding tax. But you're saying instead of that, I should go for 9% but more beneficial tax, right?
Yeah. For now, but I mean, it depends. So maybe some businesses will still opt to have general system, and even for exit capital tax, withholding still apply, but it will be credited against. So it will be ultimately 9%. So it's not in addition to. And also one important thing which I missed is that for social contribution on salaries of DSCT employees and gig contractors, it would be kept to minimum. It's like $50 per month.
Yeah.
Regular rate is 22, which is kept at roughly $2,000 per month, but now I mean it may be capped at $50 per month, which is also quite good news. And I think that within the legislative process, the IT industry overall, they showed how good they are in defending this position, because I mean the draft law which was in the beginning and the draft law in the end, I mean it was really improved. There were different discussions because tax authorities and Ministry of Finance wanted maybe some higher taxes, maybe some more powers in certain things, but I would say that the guys stood for their rights, and they were very good in kind of persuading during the hearings, and I think that the result is very good. Is very good. Of course, we'll see some practical issues which will arise as always, but again, the hopes are good.
Yeah, and if we move to your current company, Kinstellar, why did you move from DLA? And I saw that your another contact who was with DLA has moved to also. Do I understand correctly that there was a merger of the whole Ukrainian DLA into Kinstellar?
Well, yes, you're correct. The DLA team is now with Kinstellar. A year ago, and a year and a few months ago, DLA decided to leave the Ukrainian market because they decided that Ukraine is no more a priority. I mean, it was like review of global footprint. So, and then there were options on where to move, and there were discussions, and ultimately DLA and Kinstellar and ourselves, we came to a deal that Kinstellar would be best choice because it's a good firm, actually, like ex-Linklaters people. It grew quite rapidly over the last 12 years in Central and Eastern European markets and in Central Asia. And we also kind of, by going to Kinstellar, we could save our relationship with DLA. We could refer work to each other. So it's a good decision, and for us, and now, like, the most important, we came as a whole team, because that was a like, you know, this business is absolutely about people, and where you have worked for 15 years, you have synergy, and you know each other, you know how you cross-sell each other. That was the most important thing for us. That's why we chose this option.
And if you compare how it was at DLA and now at Kinstellar, do you see any differences in approaches to do the business?
Well, I think that I mean there are differences, of course. You know, there are pros and cons to each firm. You know, DLA is a larger firm. Again, there are pros and cons to that. Kinstellar is a smaller firm, but that also have different pros and different cons, you know, as well. So there are differences. We have adapted ourselves, I think, and again, we tried to be like business as usual, you know, and changing, like, you know, IT system, financial system. It's a bit different, and that creates some issues. You need to adapt yourself, but overall we are fine, and so, and we keep good relationship with DLA because I mean we know people from all over the world in DLA, and I mean we refer work to each other. That's something, the bond will remain with us, you know, I think for a long time.
And Kinstellar has many offices in Eastern Europe. How do you just refer work to each other, or is it some kind of closer cooperation between those offices, especially between the tax teams?
Uh, I think, yeah, I mean, the business development, I think, is even more unified because it all happens within one region. People get to know each other. And in terms of business development, there is a unified effort. I mean, cross-selling each other, given the work. So that works well on all sides. And in terms of tax, Kinstellar, I mean, that's something we need to develop in other offices because tax capacity in other offices, I mean, we are the biggest tax office in the region in Ukraine. So that is what we need to develop, what I need to develop. And we are working on that. So again, I see a good potential in Central and Eastern Europe. And, I think again, the Baltic states, Central and Eastern Europe, that is the market which are really, really very important and will develop further. And I think that is something which specifically will attract more investors, maybe from the US side. I would expect even more than from the EU. At least I think so. But a good perspective.
My marketing guru from US, Seth Godin, says that in order to have business, you need to have a purple cow. That somehow you differentiate from others, and you are different in certain aspects that people will stand or stop besides this purple cow, and if it's a normal cow, the people will never stop and have a look at it. So do you know what is your purple cow in your business?
Well, Yanis, I think that sometimes application of this concept to legal business and our services, I mean, is not very good. All this blue ocean, purple cows, and other things. I mean, we all read a lot of books about it, but I don't know whether they can fully be applied to our business. I mean, they say, I mean, it's universal and can be applicable to all businesses. I don't know. I think that our business is still about, like, people come to you with their problems and you need to solve them. And the more problems you can solve, the better. And frankly speaking, I think that all the marketing, all the like digital stuff which appeared in recent years, it's okay, but our business is still about going to particular people and asking for recommendations, because sometimes it's really delicate, and I doubt that people choose tax advisors for how they kind of show themselves or market themselves in media and elsewhere. I think that is important, of course, and all the credentials and Legal 500, and specifically for multinationals, of course. But for example, private individuals, like our local businesses, I mean, it's a bit different. And I think it's still important that you can be recommended by real guy to somebody, and people will come to you because of this recommendation. So, and our strategy was, I think, since 2008, when the financial crisis took place, that we kind of will do all offerings in tax, which would allow us to generate revenue, disputes, tax advice, I don't know, transfer pricing, everything you can do to kind of generate profit. And I think we are still in that mode, because, I mean, the practice showed that, I mean, it paid off, right? And I would say that's our purple cow, not having a purple cow. Maybe.
Well said, Ilya. Do you remember that many years ago we were sitting in a restaurant in I think it was somewhere, was it in Mumbai when we
No,
had
no.
was it
It was
Rio?
Rio. It was Rio de Janeiro. Yeah.
Yeah, sitting in a nice restaurant, looking at the beach, or having some nice view, having a cold beer, and having a nice conversation. Uh, about we were dreaming about the bright future. Do you remember what we were dreaming about in some more details?
Well, I think that, frankly, I don't remember. Maybe I disappoint our like listeners. I think, well, we discussed NBA and Porzingis. Definitely, that's what we were discussing. Let's not pretend that we are tax gurus and always thinking of future. We are like ordinary guys talking about NBA, football, and some other things. And I definitely remember we had a very good steak, picanha steak there. That's for sure. And we discussed, I'm sure we discussed tax maybe.
A little bit.
A little bit.
And have you heard Porzingis just changed clubs unexpectedly, at least to me?
No, I haven't heard that trade. I heard about James Harden. Where did he move?
He just was traded to Washington.
Okay.
Actually, this was a unique trade because he two Latvians were involved in the same trade, so that one Latvian moved, Porzingis moved from Dallas to Washington, and Bertans moved from Washington to Dallas.
Okay. So, I mean, ultimately, there is only one Latvian in Washington, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's kind of fun. So, Ilya, it was fun, and it was great talking to you. And as you probably know, that I always end my podcast with the same question of your version of meaning of life. On the philosophical note, what would you answer to that?
Well, I think my answer would be simple to maybe I will not be too smart. I think the purpose of life is to live with the people whom you love and who love you, and to have fun. And I think that ultimately we will all remember all those good things that happened to us, like sitting in restaurant in Rio and discussing things, and like having a podcast, etc. The more we have these moments, the better. And again, I think that we need to maybe take some things less seriously than we should have, and then we'll be fine, because that is the recipe. That is the recipe.
Yeah. Great words, Ilya, and I really hope that this madness will pass just on the political level, and nothing will happen, and we will have a good chat in some IFA Congress somewhere in a nice place, and we'll talk about this as a bad dream.
Yeah, for sure, Yanis, and thanks for having me, for invite, and always a pleasure. And I hope to see you finally personally after all this COVID, war, and all the stuff going on. Because I mean, all these online meetings are good, but still, sitting in the restaurant is much better.
Having steak.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah. Thanks, Ilya. I really
Thanks.
enjoyed this 1 hour. Thanks.
Yeah,
Keep in
thank you.
touch.
Thank you, and keep in touch.